Hi there, Montclair here from Lake Terror Among Us Manor. Wanted to put out a quick video of this completed project because I am officially done with it. We're going to start off by making hands for the spit, and these will be the hands that hold the spit itself. The pictures are pretty self-explanatory. Just cut a block of wood and attach some coaxial cable. This is like the cable that attaches from your cable box. Cover that with some black Gorilla Tape, and now we're going to see a time lapse of me creating the rest of the hand. It'll look like the one on the left, and don't worry about that cable, it'll disappear out of the picture in just a second. Here I am making knuckles using plastic bag and painter's tape. You just wad the plastic bag up into a little ball and tape it to the hand where you think the knuckles should be. At this point we're ready to give the hand some flesh, and I'm going to coat the hand with spray adhesive and then wrap a plastic bag around each one of the coaxial cables to give the fingers some meat. Now I'm going to shrink the plastic bag onto the coaxial cables using a heat gun. Pretty simple process, just heat up the plastic bags and they'll shrink right onto the coaxial cable and give you a nice firm basis for the rest of the process. At this point we're ready to corpse the hand, which essentially means adding the final layer of plastic. And for that I'll be using strips of clear plastic drop cloth. And it's the same process, using spray adhesive, spraying it onto each one of the fingers and then wrapping it to give it a little bit more of a smoother texture than just the plastic bags, because I want a little smoother texture, but again I do want it to look like something that's, you know, evil or rotting or dead. Actually for this I wanted something to look kind of like it was like charcoal a little bit, very white and ashy, and with black lines in it to make it look like it was really crispy. Here I decided that the thumb wasn't thick enough, so I added more plastic bag and just wrapped that around, shrunk it with the heat gun, and then added another layer of plastic from the drop cloth. So this is how they came out before painting. I think they came out pretty good. They're posable and they look like big, huge, evil hands. So now I'm going to paint them, starting off with a base of white spray paint. And this will allow me to then antique the hands using black stain and some brown paint, which is what I'm doing right now. And just stir that up, add that to both of the hands. You want to really coat this. This is going to be like what's going to start to give your hand that texture, that burnt texture that I was talking about earlier. And just coat the hand completely, wipe it off with a cloth, and that will give you an antiquing to start off with. So with the antiquing done, I'm going to begin the painting process. Unfortunately, I don't have all of that in the video due to a technical error, but all I did was essentially paint the hands grayish white, sort of a dry brush technique, and then I went over it again with a darker black, and this is what you end up with. Looks pretty good. this point, this is the arms that I'm going to be building that will hold up the hand that holds up the spit. But all I really did here was make a stand for a 2x4, wrap that with chicken wire, and then molded it into the shape of an arm. Then wrapped plastic around that, more of that drop cloth plastic, and it came out pretty good. They look like arms. And same process again, just paint them both white, then antique them. That's this picture, and then in the next picture you'll see the final paint job, and it matched up real nice, came out very nicely. Next up is the base of the hand, and for that I just wrapped chicken wire around the base structure that I'd made with wood and filled that in with great stuff foam. And we're trying to go for appearance of dirt here. The idea is that the hands are busting up out of the ground and holding up the spit. So I coated all of that with a brown stain, actually a black stain, and then went over it again with a brown paint. And I used a spray gun to accomplish this. Not spray paint, but latex paint so that the foam wouldn't rot. Now we're looking at a test of the entire prop, minus the fire. And I wanted the prop to look like it was being turned by somebody or something, and we decided to go with a cheapo blow mold skeleton. And the way the skeleton is attached is just with a piece of insulating foam stuck onto the end of the handle that I made with PVC pipe, 3/4 PVC. And then the hands of the skeleton are just zip tied to that, and it actually lets the hands rotate around that pipe, so it gives you the illusion that he's, turning the thing and it's turning in his hands. And the joints of the skeleton are connected just with zip ties. And at this point I'm going to take the skeleton and turn it into something cool. And this was done with basic plastic wrap corpsing. I went over it again, did a little bit more, gave him a nose, wasn't happy with it, cut some holes in the side of his face, removed one of the eyes, did some more corpsing, and then I added some hair. And we decided he would be a chef, so we gave him a chef's hat. My wife made that, and then we created a chef costume out of a child's karate gi. And these are a close-up of the hands where I actually painted in the different fingers because those cheapo skeletons don't really have that. We also corpsed the arm and the whole thing, and this is another test of it, showing the prop turning along with the finished product up at the top anyway before we added the rest of his costume. And again, the joints are just, the skeleton's been taken apart and the joints are connected with zip ties, and that's what gives him the flexibility. And here are some more pictures of him, and that's the final product with his chef's outfit. And now we're moving on to the fire, and this is a fire that we had made a few years ago, and I decided that needed to be improved for sure. So what I decided to do was wrap the entire thing with chicken wire, and then use some orange Halloween lights, wrap the whole thing with that, and then we're going to be covering that with fake wood that we're making here. And this is using blue foam, and real simple process. Just take a file, drag it across the foam, then hit it with the heat gun, cut out the grooves in the wood, the grain with a soldering iron, making knots, and then going for painting the whole thing. And I have a whole nother separate video on this if you'd like to learn this entire process. But briefly, what I did was coat each of these with latex paint, and then go over them with black and brown spray paint, and then gave them a dry brush, some of them with a white paint to make bring out highlights, make it look like ash, like burnt chunks of the wood were turned ashy. And it came out really well, and you can check out that other video if you want information on this whole process. Most of these had latex paint applied, some of them didn't. And again, spray paint will eat away at foam, so that's kind of the reason for the base of the latex paint, but also to bring out the grain in the prop wood. For this next piece of wood, I'm going to create a really ashy section. It's a piece that I went across the grain with the soldering iron to create that crisscross pattern. I just hit it with some white paint, feathered it out, because it did come out a little too quickly and not exactly what I wanted. But I feathered that out, added a little bit more black and then some more white, and They give you that ashy look. And then I painted the back of these with a fluorescent orange because I didn't really care what the back looked like. I wanted it to look like it was hot and burning and red. Here are a couple of shots of the finished product. You can see the wood grain, you can see a lot of that texture along with the ash. Again, the ash is very easy to create because of all the texture we made with the file and the heat gun. It's just a dry brush of white. Here's one with not so much, but that crisscross section is kind of white and ashy. So it came out pretty good, especially the knots in the wood. So next I needed to attach the wood to the chicken wire that I wrapped around the fan, and I did that using Great Stuff foam, and maybe a little too much of it there because it kind of seeped out. But when it's illuminated with the Halloween lights, it looks like coal. And I'm also going to be painting the Great Stuff, but you can kind of see it there. And this is what it looks like while it's running before I painted it. And for the fire, the flame effect up at the top, I used a 3 LED spotlight, a red spotlight, and just kind of situated it on the side of the fabric. Gonna start off the process like I do with most of my props, and that's spray adhesive, plastic bags, and a heat gun. You just bunch up the bags into a section to make it the end of the bone, and then fold up some tin foil and mold that around the plastic bags to make it into the shape of an end of a bone. If this is the first video you're watching about this project, go ahead and check the description or the information box, and there'll be a link to the original video that details the entire construction of this prop. Essentially, the middle section between the ends of the bones is just a PVC 3/4 inch PVC pipe covered with a pipe insulator, and then wrapped with plastic and a heat shrink with the heat gun. Once you have the ends of each bone constructed, wrap the entire thing with plastic drop cloth or plastic wrap or plastic bags, whatever you have. It's all pretty much the same thing. Just cut it to size. I use some spray adhesive to hold the whole thing down, then shrink it with the heat gun, and that will give you an interesting texture in between each end of the bone that will come into play later on when we paint this. Painting is very simple. Just use white spray paint and coat each bone. Now you may be thinking that this is too white and it's going to look odd, but we need this bright white color for our antiquing that we'll be doing in the next step. The final step in the painting process is antiquing, and here I'm using a mixture of brown stain, brown paint, a little bit of black paint, a little bit of yellow, and watered down, probably about 50-50 mix. Just paint each bone thoroughly and then wipe it off with a paper towel, and you will get this very nice antique effect on each one of the bones, and will show a lot of detail in each one of the bones, make it look aged. So at this point you're done, unless you want to add some additional protection, and you can do that with spar urethane, or another product I've been using is Flexi Seal. Not entirely sure if it's actually necessary, but it can't hurt to have some additional protection against the weather if you're going to be using your prop outside. Came out pretty good. You can see a lot of the definition in the bones thanks to that antiquing technique. Here's a shot of it with the lights off. This will probably be similar to what it'll look like on Halloween. Looks really good, looks nasty, and works well with the rest of the prop. I thought this was a nice addition. Now, if you watched the previous video on the construction of this entire prop, you may be wondering what happened to the guy that goes onto the spit. Well, obviously I had to remove him to create the bones, and he'll be going back on there just as soon as all of this dries. Today I completed the bones along the handle of the spit. I think it came out pretty good. If this is your first time at my channel and you've not seen the videos of the construction of this project, check the links below the description or the information box and you'll be able to see the complete construction of this entire project, including the bones that we're looking at now. As you can see, I've added back the guide that's attached to the spit. I put it back on with zip ties and tried to line the zip ties up to the separations between each bone. I don't think it's all that noticeable, and especially in the dark, you won't see that. I want to thank you for stopping by my channel and checking out my video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And check out all the rest of the videos that I've made, and we've got more coming up for the rest of the year. Thanks a lot.